Hey friends, this is Ian Khan, and I'm welcoming you this Thursday, August the 20th, on our live stream, the Be Future Ready in 60 Minutes. This is the time and era where you want to talk about future readiness. You want to learn how to really work your way through life, through circumstances, to whatever is happening across the world, to your business, to the economy, to industry, and figure out a way to move forward. Today I have a really great friend, an incredible guest who's going to talk about some key and important things that are mandatory, that are essential to business working the way it should. Now, we all are affected by this one thing right now in the world called COVID-19. And I don't want to talk too much about it because it's already there. We know what it is. We know what to do about it. But given the era post COVID-19 and gearing towards improvement, gearing towards changing the state of business and accelerating your results, you've got to be able to have a strategy for communication, for storytelling. And that encompasses so many different things, your digital marketing, your SEO, and a bunch of other things. Lucky for us, we have one of the best folks who can tell us about this because he runs one of the most successful PR companies and wire services in America today, KissPR. And I have with me the founder and the CEO of KissPR, Qamar Zaman. Qamar, welcome to Future Ready in 60 Minutes. We are super thrilled to have you on board because we're going to talk about some brutally honest things that'll help everybody, our viewers, propel themselves into the future. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. And I am very honest. I shoot from the hip. So I think this will be perfect fun.
So absolutely. So Qamar and I, we talked before we went live and we say, hey, should we sugarcoat things or should we be brutally honest? And we agreed we're going to be brutally honest. So get your paper out, get your notebook out and write the strategies that Qamar is going to talk about and we'll talk about. A lot is coming in the next 1 hour. So get glued to your seats. Don't go anywhere. And let's start with, first of all, Qamar, you tell us who you are. Give us a little bit overview of who do you operate as? Who is Qamar Zaman?
Qamar Zaman is my friends called me a fearless leader. I have been in the space of digital marketing for 20 years, but before that, I'm a technologist, a programmer with a degree in business and finance, and grew up as a kid that was wanting to become a doctor. My dad was in banking. We lived all over the world, from Pakistan to Kenya to London, England. We have lived in Hong Kong, Tokyo. So I've lived everywhere. And when we were growing up, we would travel. My dad was in international banking. So every year he would go and operate banks or open up banks. So I would travel with him. And there came a time where I was growing up and he decided that, I was losing a lot of school. So he put me in a boarding school. And I think that was the best thing that happened to me. That was not the best thing that happened to my dad, because I grew out of my comfort zone and I started saying no to him, and he didn't like that from a cultural point of view. But that's what I was. So I went to a boarding school in England, went there, then came to the US. I was actually living in Hong Kong, and my dad said that, where do you want to go to school? And I said, I want to apply to California, because everybody wanted to go to California. So I applied at UCLA, Michigan State, and there was one other school that I don't remember. And I got the acceptance from Michigan State and UCLA. So my dad, obviously, he was a banker and he was the managing director of this bank. So he told me to one day to come to his office, and he wanted to discuss something with me. So I went there and he told me to go with the guy's name was Roy. He says, go with Mr. Roy to the American consulate and go and find out which one is a better school. So he assigned this job to Mr. Roy. And we went there, and the guy did his, due diligence, because I was only 16. So they did their due diligence, came back, and he said UCLA is better. But my dad said, well, I don't think so. That's a good choice. Let's send him to Michigan, because he wanted to send me to Michigan because I could be isolated. I would be in a really cold weather. So he was trying to grill me that way. My dad always did that to me. So
Yeah.
in a good way that I realize now. So I landed in Michigan, and then I lost my suitcases from Hong Kong. So it's a long story, which is for a different day. But that was my first day in the U.S. I'm 17, and I don't have any suitcase. I'm living with one jeans and a T-shirt that I brought in, and this was in December. So just to give you an idea. So that's who Qamar Zaman is, and since then my journey began, and I continue to do what I do the best. I never give up. I've had many struggles in life, and I never give up. Give up is not a word in my dictionary. Plan B is not a word in my dictionary. So that's really who I
I
am.
love it. Thank you, Kamar. That's inspirational because you've lived in multiple countries. You've had that exposure when since you were a kid, and I think that adds a lot to your knowledge of the world. The way you see the world. I personally believe I travel a lot, and that kind of adds new layers to your character, and I think makes you a better person. I believe it. I think travel is incredible, and those lessons you learn earlier in life to travel to your parents, I think they're amazing. I try and do that with my kids, and that hence the connection. I understand. Uh,
Yeah.
Kamar, today you operate KissPR, and you also have another side of business, digital marketing, SEO. You're one of the top firms in Dallas area. You do a lot of work, and during the last 3 months, you've done something big. You've done something incredible, which is give away PR worth almost $1 million to entrepreneurs who've been struggling, who've been suffering, and we all know what's happening to entrepreneurship. Uh, Before I ask you what that is all about, I know there's an incredible story behind how you ended up in Dallas, how you had that awakening and the incident in your life, the learning experiences in your life that put you on this path that you're on right now. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I actually came to the US after I had gone back, but I used to live in the Cayman Islands. And I lived in the Cayman for almost about 8 years. I was working with the tech company there. I was the general manager of operations. I was managing their operations. And I got an opportunity to come to America. So as I was interviewed, they sponsored me, got me a green card. So I finally came to the US. And I worked for 3 years in a tech company. And my role was to implement ERP software. So I would travel every week. My wife would have a suitcase ready for me, and I would have that suitcase available to me, and I would just go to places Monday to Friday, come back, didn't even get the chance to meet the kids. And this I did for 3 years. And in one December, Christmas time, I was in Detroit, Michigan, implementing a major project for an MHMR, which is like a hospital. And I told my boss, listen, I'm not feeling good. I have shingles. I'm so stressed about what should I do. And he said, well, I would really want you to finish the job. So I did. And then after that, I drove because I couldn't travel with shingles. So I drove all the way, and I was thinking, why am I doing this? But I don't like giving up. So I kept on doing it. And then he sent me to some other place. Comes the time in May, it's now 3 years, he's reviewing me. And I remember he had hired me, and I was making like around 65K that time, which was a good salary back then in 2002, maybe. So he gave me a raise of $4,000, and so turned it to 69. And he said, you could have done better. And I said to him, what do you mean? And he said, you did $18 million in sales, and it could have been at least 25. And I said, Leon, I am not in sales.
Yeah.
My job was implementation. I did that. But he says, yeah, we are all in sales. So it kind of, I paused and I said, yeah, I think, okay, that's good. So I decided that this job was not for me. I was shackled I was not being creative. I was like programmed to do a task, completed it. I made everybody happy. So I came and talked to my wife. Thanks God she had just passed CPA, because when we got married, she was not, she was still going to high school. So she had just passed her CPA. She was working at Pricewaterhouse. So she said, I got a job. You need to quit and do something. So I said, well, great. So I quit the job and I
Yeah.
started calling all my clients. And the company says, no, you can't do that. You have conflict of interest. So I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do? So I decided I'm going to go back to the Cayman Islands. So I pack up, leave the kids because I was traveling anyway. So I go and rent this. Uh, it's kind of like a apartment where I was living in the basement, and there was landlord on the top, and then she had a third floor. So I rented that. I wanted to save money, and I went to every single day. I sat at a coffee shop with my laptop, and I would have paper and I'll be drawing because I'm very illustrative. So I draw, map it out, all of that. And then this guy comes to me and he says, son, what are you doing? Because they knew me. Cayman is a very small place. So I said, I'm creating a website wireframe. And what is that? So I started explaining to him, and he says, can you do a website? So in about a month, I had built maybe 3 or 4 websites. I was making $20,000 a month, tax free, because Cayman is tax free. I was
Yeah.
sending money to my wife. I still had great money. So in about 6 months, I was making like $90,000. And I'm thinking, this is the life that I want. And I was building websites. I didn't even know SEO. There was nothing about SEO. It was simple. Nobody searches on the island to go somewhere. So I was doing that. And then I found a partner. He said, can you do the project for me? And I said, okay. I trusted him. When you're naive, you trust everybody. So I trusted him. And as a result, I was writing this code on the software. And it was September 12th, 2004, that Hurricane Ivan struck the island. My wife told me that you need to leave. And I said, we have lived here for so long. Where am I going to go? This is fine. So I went to the bank, got $100, and just came back to the apartment. And that night, that was the one hurricane that destroyed the islands. There were Category 6 winds. There was
Wow.
tornadoes around it. The water had come inside the house. My whole basement flooded. So I went upstairs, and I was latching on to the bicycle stands, and there were
Yeah.
2 other guys. And we had the landlady and her mom. She was really old. So we put a mattress and we tied the mattress from all different corners. So she was lying down. And
Yeah.
for 18 hours, we were just hanging in there. There was no roof on us. There was ocean right there. And I did not think I was going to live. Those days we had Blackberry, so my phone went out. The only thing that I had was a sandwich bag with my passport, the $100, and that's it. So the hurricane finished. We survived. So now what I'm going to do. So I leave them. I'm saying, let me go and find whatever is left. So as I'm walking, I'm seeing the island destroyed completely. Nobody knows about it because they didn't make the announcement because it was such an important thing. So I walked for almost like 10 miles and went to a friend's house. He gave me the shelter. And for about 15 days, I stayed with him. I would walk every single day in 104 temperature to the grocery store because everything was closed, and I would see if something is open. And a week later, and this is the first lesson that I learned. A week later, I go there and I'm standing. And that's the time that I grew the beard, looked like Tom Hanks in the Castaway movie. So I walk there with my backpack. All my skin is burnt, and I standing outside this grocery store, and there's a big line of people, almost like 500 people, and I have to stand there just to get in to buy some stuff for me and my friend. And I see a guy by the name of Randy Marin. He's the owner of the business. And he says, Kamar. And I used to do some technology work for him. So he was kind of like a friend. He pulled me in. He said, get whatever you want. Just get it. The limit was $25, but he said, get whatever you want. So I bought some stuff, put it in my backpack. And I don't normally don't drink fountain drinks. I had a Coke, and that felt like, you know, miracle. Like, and I bought some candies, gummy bears, because I needed survival food.
Yeah.
Then I started walking back to my friend, and then I stopped at the airport to see if I can go back to Texas because I couldn't stay on the island. Didn't have any resource that I could do. The life was pretty much done there. So I go to the airport, and they were only flying out people that were either really old or the kids. So I met a flight attendant, and she was my friend, and she said, I can get you into the plane for free because you don't have any money, but you have to find two things. You have to find a kid and an old guy. So the kid was my friend's daughter. I brought her with me, and the old guy was a guy that had invented the big razor. There was an old guy standing there. He was bleeding, and I said, "Hey, I can take you to Dallas." And he said, "Yeah." He was from Britain, and he said, "Yeah, I can go with you." So we sat in the plane. A day later, and I was back in Miami. I called a friend. He came and picked me up from the airport, and that was it. So that's when I came back to Dallas, and now the new story began. Now what am I going to do? So that's where it's all, at least the first part of the story ended.
Yeah. And there is so much in that story because once you go through an event that questions you and your life and your existence, and it's hard to imagine what you went through. I've had my own struggles in life where I've gone through situations where you nearly faced death, you nearly faced the end of life, and you questioned everything that happened to you. So I was raised in a place that had political conflict, armed conflict, and it was really difficult to go out and feel safe. And so I understand that when you're in that situation somehow. uh, you decided. So some of the things that I want to point out to our viewers are: life sometimes throws you a curveball. It'll throw you something that is totally unexpected. And the ability to be resilient to it and to continue focusing on the fact that you can get through out of it, it is so important for survival. And I think human beings have that inbuilt, that need to survive. But there's also this thing where you don't have any hope. You feel at a loss. You feel tomorrow is murky. How do you do that with you now that you've gone through that big experience in life? How do you deal with things such as the COVID-19, such as any incident that shakes you up? Because I want our viewers to know that and work with that.
I think the foundation is your mindset. Growing up, my dad would throw me curveballs, and I'm a middle child, so I have an elder sister and a younger brother. So he always put challenges in me, and I always think that he doesn't like me because why is he making me do things that he doesn't give it to other? Because he knew that they can't do it and I can overcome them. He would put me in situations. I'll give you an example. We were living in London. He was in Paris, and he wanted me to come over and bring the family. I was only 14. So he calls me and says, Kumar, I want you to write a letter. I'm going to send a fax at home with supporting documents. Go to the French consulate, get a visa for your family, and come back on the weekend. Now, a 14-year-old kid has to write a letter. It has to be professionally written, has to go to the consulate, get the passport of a mother, brother, sister, all of that. So he put me into that situation, and that was like, I hated it. Like, why is he making me do that? So now I get up, and we grew up in a very strict environment. So 14 years old kid wears a three-piece suit, carries a briefcase, goes to the place, gets the visa. And that was mindset, because I couldn't make dad fail. Like, I didn't want to fail.
Yeah.
So that was my mindset. And every time I've been put into this situation, for me, mindset is important. It's just now programmed. I'm with my business partner, and we go to this business meeting. We're in New York, and the guy says to us, I want to be on the first page of Google like in 1 week. And my partner is saying, yes, he can do it. He says, nobody can do this because we have been trying to do it for 3 years. And they'll say, Kumar, you can do it. It says, yeah, because I auto suggest, I already believe that it's done. This is my mindset. I believe it's done. So when happens is that when these hurricane came, yes, I felt down, but I believe that I'm going to come back again. So when COVID happened, something bad had really happened before COVID. Last year, I was sitting, working, everything is in perfect situation. An old client of mine for 10 years that I'd worked with sued me. I'd never been sued. So I remember my dad, and he says, to become successful, you have to be sued. You have to have at least a car accident, and you must know a good lawyer as your friend. So I went to the lawyer. I told him this is what had happened. We won the lawsuit. Uh, Whatever they sued me for was bogus. So, but I lived that moment for a year. So when COVID happened, I thought, well, this is another situation, another curveball that I've been thrown in. But I had to pivot. So the second lesson one must learn is you must pivot faster. And this reminds me of my days in Hong Kong. Um, and Bruce Lee says that you must be like water. If you change your stance right away, you pivot, you don't get kicked. So you have to really pivot fast. So when COVID happened, I was going to decide, well, what am I going to do? But the only thing that I had good was 10 years ago when the hurricane happened, I didn't have the resources. You know, I had to restart. This time I had to just press a button and I said, you know what? I have food on the table, but there are going to be a lot of people that have no clue. And for me to sell them something, I just didn't even feel right. Yes, it's a financial decision. It's all economics. But for me, actually, a lady called me a few days ago and she said, you guys do a good job. How do you do this for free? And I said, you know what, lady? I have the most richest partner in this business. And she said, who? Elon? I says, no, it's actually my God.
Yeah.
Because he takes care of me. He keeps the lights on. So my faith, the mindset, I don't worry. I keep on going, you know.
Incredible.
Somebody has got,
Yeah, so mindset is really important, and this is my take on what you just said, that always believe in not just positive because it's good to think positive, but have an expectation of things to turn out in a better way. And many times life's lessons are tough, but I think it's testing our mettle, it's testing our resilience. And the only way to move forward is to believe that there can be a better option, there will be a better alternative, and go through that test as that unfolds. Now, Kamar, we're almost halfway through our interview, and I know there's so much to talk about. I do want to pivot the conversation a little bit towards
sure.
entrepreneurs, towards what we're living through right now, the era where gaining attention is very important for businesses to be successful. And it's not only just gaining the attention of your viewers, your audiences, your customers, but also to be put your best foot forward with your products, with your services, to tell the best story about what you can do and what value you can add to the lives of people and businesses and organizations who are listening to you and who you would want to listen to you. And so with that, we open up the topic of digital marketing, communications, PR. You mentioned SEO before. It's a very complex world. And average businesses do not understand these things. It's very technical sometimes to understand search engine ranking to people who don't understand what all that is. If you were to give advice to businesses, entrepreneurs who want to be able to tell a better story, tell us a little bit about what's the connection between getting it right in the first place, getting the ingredients right for your cake, and then baking it. It's not just shoving ingredients together and throwing it in the oven, but you've got to have the right combination of the base of the cake so that it actually tastes good as well when you cut it.
Yeah, totally. So first thing I want to tell the users that are listening or will listen, that forget about SEO. Okay, SEO is a very technical aspect of complication that has been created by technologists who are in the business of making money. Now, does SEO exist just like COVID exists? Yes, SEO does exist. But by marketing, a lot of people have turned that into something bad. So, and I'll discuss that later. But before we talk about SEO, let's go back to our roots. When we are growing up, I'm sure when you were a kid and everybody that's listening, we went with our parents, with our friends for movies. And how many movies do you remember when you were fifth grade versus what do you remember in the fifth grade in chemistry or the 10th grade? I don't remember that, but I do remember every single movie that I have watched. Okay. So stories are in our DNA. We will remember the story. So the future of not just during COVID, but the future of a business owner is to tell their story. And there is the process of telling a story. Just like a movie maker creates a story, like I'm a fan of James Bond, so there's a hero in the story, the protagonist. There's a villain in the story. There's a guide, Q. That's what my friends call me, Q. He's the guy that provides the car, the pen, etc. So define who are the characters of your story and then go and tell that. What has happened, the big tech has made this really complicated. And I want to debunk the myth that everybody will remember the story. There's no such thing as a press release. It's just a big name, and people are confused about the word press release, PR, etc. You need to tell a story, and the story, will be remembered. Just open up your Facebook page and you will see a story of a child playing with a cat. You remember that. That's why Facebook is successful. But you put a graph, economics, people don't understand it, right? Because it's all mind, and story touches the emotion. So
Yes.
tell a story, it strikes your subconscious, and that's it. That's the very first thing they need to do.
And it's in human evolution, and there's so many books and theories about it, and it's you could be just doing this for the rest of your life. But human beings, as they evolved, our ancestors, they sat around the fire. What they shared at the end of the day, at the end of the hunt, was stories about what happened, and that's how history has been created, through storytelling. I really believe,
Yeah.
and this we work with a lot of businesses that want to be future ready, and it's all about future readiness. Is get the foundation ready, know who you are, what you are as a business, and yes, of course, you're a law firm, you're a doctor, you're a manufacturer of something. But I really believe the fact that you provide a service or a product is not generally enough to convince me that this is who you are. This is what you do, right? This is excellent.
Mhm.
This is what you do. But who
Mhm.
are you? What value do you bring? So there's that very well defined, I would say, theme that needs to be cleared up before you can start claiming your position in your society, in your region, in your city, in your neighborhood, saying, hey, we are the best at this and please buy our product or solutions, or we are the best law firm, the best clinic, whatever it is. I think there's that step. So we've got the foundation right, you've got to get your story right. So let's say entrepreneurs have got their story right. What is the next logical step? Should they be doing spending money on Google Ads, or should they be creating social media accounts and starting to tweet every day? What's the ideal process? And what are
Right.
people
And
getting
that's where,
wrong?
right. That's where most people don't do it right. So the story needs to be right. But before we even craft a story, we have to think about who is the story for. So the first thing is identify the avatar, the audience. Who is this for? So before I start doing anything, I'm going to say, okay, this story is going to be in Dallas. My product is, I'm selling a roof. So this story needs to be for a roofer that is selling a roof. And he has helped people in Dallas repair their homes, put cover to their homes, etc. So this story is about helping people. So you need to define your audience very, very clearly. Once you have your audience defined, that's the step number one. I've actually developed a 9-step plan, which is going to be in my book coming up. The first one is define your audience. And there's an old adage, if you want to see what John Smith buys, you have to see the world through their eyes. So if you don't know your audience, you're definitely going to go in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Step number one, that's the audience. The second thing is, once you have identified your audience, the second thing is, what is the message to the audience? So I was working with a client, so I'll give you a perfect example. We are working with a client. They are a personal injury lawyer in New York City, and they want to do cases all over the New York City. And I say to them, well, that's too broad. You're just starting. There's everybody out there. What makes you unique? So we identified that what's unique for him is he's a bicyclist. Okay. So I said, okay, you're a bicyclist and you're a lawyer. And during COVID-19, there are a lot of bicycle accidents because everybody's taking bicycles.
Yeah.
So your story needs to be about bicyclist who is also a lawyer. So that is, and now you need to speak that language to the people. So you need to define how the bicyclists talk. Okay. If you have a Harley, you are going to talk differently. So we defined the narrative, how they're going to talk. Once we know the language of the story, at what grade level we're going to talk the story at. The third one is, where are we sending this person to? Is it going to be a website? Is it going to be a Facebook page? Is it going to be some digital asset where the story is going to be placed at, and that's going to drive traffic to the, and ideally, website is not the best place. You want to send it to a funnel, because websites are distracting. You go there, you see everything, and then you get confused. So if you're a bicyclist, you want to put top of mind video problem, because you are not a lawyer, you are a doctor. You're solving the problem of people that have been injured, and your specialty is a lawyer who specializes in bicycle accidents. So you send them to a funnel. Now, how do you send them to the funnel? The first one is you write and publish the story on your blog. Second one is you come to a product like us, a storytelling platform. Let us help you to get your story become viral. Third is you identify what's the best medium these bicyclists are using. Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook? Is it LinkedIn? Whatever the mechanism is, you advertise there. You don't advertise everywhere because funds are limited. So you find wherever your audience stays, where do they consume the content?
Yeah.
Once you know that, then you send them to your story. And if it smells like an ad, it's bad. So it needs to be educational, because the first interaction of the story is like a date. On the first date, you don't want to ask a girl, what's the name of our kids going to be? You don't want that. So you want to have a story of education. They come, they stay, they learn about you. So they now know you. They get to like you with more stories. And that's when they start to trust you. And once they start to trust you, you start to get business. That's exactly what I did. I started offering $1 million worth of stories for free, because I want people to first test drive it. And if it works for them, great. If it doesn't work for them, they can try some other methods too.
Absolutely. A lot of insights there. Thank you, Qamar. It's, I think we need to start, I'm going to repeat this again. So clearly define your audience. Identifying the channels through which you're reaching the audiences is very important. So maybe as a business, you don't need to be on TikTok, or you don't need to be on Facebook, or you don't need to be on Twitter. Identifying your channels is really, really important, because perhaps not all of your intended target audiences are on that platform. Or if you have, let's say you're
I learned
serving.
it. Yeah, I'll give you one more insight. I
Go ahead.
learned this
Go
from
ahead.
somebody. I learned this from somebody that each of your social media channel is like a red phone. So you have a red phone and LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and when you post everywhere, the red phone is going to ring. So you can only answer one phone. Which one is
Yeah.
going to be the best you answer?
Yeah.
So start with one platform and then build and scale and build and scale.
Absolutely. Here's an example that I can think of. If you're, let's say, a healthcare practitioner of some sort, any sort, doctor, chiropractor, dentist, and if you want to target folks who are older, who are, say, 70 years and older, a lot of them are on Facebook because they're using tablets and it's in front of them. I mean, this is an example from my family. A lot of the older folks in my family, they're on their tablets. And so if you really want to reach that audience, start thinking, where are they consuming their content? What are they doing on an everyday basis? Maybe they're reading an actual physical newspaper. So that investigative work needs to be done. But if you're trying to post on Twitter and you're hoping it'll reach your intended audiences, it's not necessarily the right way to do. Which brings me to
Totally.
another question. When you've identified the channels, Qamar, what about the frequency at which you post things? Do you post uh, once a day on everything, or do you post 10 times a day on everything? Like, how do you figure out what to do on what channel? And we also have a few questions coming in. We're going to start answering them in the next few minutes. Qamar, go ahead.
So the content fatigue is important. So you want to address the content on the channel. So if you are posting your content on Facebook, think of your grandma that is going to read it and she may skip it at 9 o'clock. So it's okay to post again at a later part of the day, but don't sell to grandma, and be respectful of the space that you are in. If you're in Twitter and you're trying to target journalists, do the same thing. Everybody has to be respected with their time and space. So just like social media is not different. If I was to call you, pick up the phone and call you, I would have to know what's the best time Ian is going to be available to talk to me. But if I call you 10 times, you're going to get rid of me. So the best thing is just be careful. There's no method in the madness. There are a lot
Yeah.
of articles have been written. You can post at this time and that time. Every time is different, and be unique. So post whatever is unique for that particular channel.
And of course, on every platform today, and we're talking social media, every platform has a generally defined audience. Who's on this platform and why are they there? The audience from Instagram is different from that of Facebook, is different from that of LinkedIn, is different from that of TikTok. Of course, there's a little bit of an overlap, but when you're spending time, energy, effort to post content, because it costs time and money to create content and then to
Yeah.
post it, you want to be very precise in doing that, because you're just wasting time otherwise. So I think
Right.
that strategy for every platform must exist somehow. And I see this a lot, that folks will do everything on every platform and say, well, we're not getting any results. It doesn't work that way. And what is challenging is and you mentioned this in the start, Kamar, many organizations have, and companies and marketers have made it very complex. And so I think we also need to question ethics as marketers and as organizations who help other people. It's got to be an ethical way of helping customers understand. Education is such a big part of that, and you
Totally.
mentioned that as well. I have a question on something that you mentioned earlier, and that was funnels. I have Adrian, who's on LinkedIn, and he says, if we are promoting a funnel strategy to reach people, is it ideal to put a video in the landing page. So let's get a little bit specific with the funnel idea that you mentioned. What is a funnel, and what are some of the best practices for creating a funnel?
The marketer that is known for creating funnels, I think it was initially Dan Kennedy and then Russell Brunson. Funnel is like a room. So when somebody enters your home, you take them to a living room and you put them there, and hopefully you will feed them and they will come out from there. If they are your friends, they can go walk around. If they're not, they just come to visit you. You want them to be stayed there in that room. So a funnel is a one place where you give them the shock and awe treatment. So the video plays a big role because people don't like to read. So when there's a video, and if you especially put on top of the video or below a 3-minute watch, you are telling the user, give me 3 minutes and you will learn something significant. If you put 20 minutes, they're going to run away. So there's a good timing. And Facebook even says that in their strategy that 3-minute videos do very well. So a 3-minute video, 4-minute, whatever your time is that you can convey, then explain that product and positioning there. At that point in the funnel, there is a component that you want to have. After they have seen your video, you have to give them something called a social proof that I have this product and it's being designed and it's being used by multiple people, because we like to do business with people that we know, like, and trust. Okay, Robert Cialdini has a book on that, so I'm not going to go in that, but you can tell people that I have multiple people that I've helped. So that helps them. And then using a principle of reciprocity, give them a test drive so they can try it. And then if they like it, they can buy something better. There's more to it. There is a scarcity principle. I'm not a big fan of that. I think by pushing people to urgency, you don't believe your product. If your product is really good, urgency is not needed unless you are selling something perishable, which is fine then. I think we lost your audio.
So Russell Brunson, more of the new generation funnel person, but Robert Cialdini on influence and how to influence people is a must read if you're a marketer and if you're watching this today. I have with me Qamar Zaman, CEO of KissPR, and we're talking about digital marketing, SEO, PPC, everything to do with getting ahead and getting your story right. I've got another question. eWorker is saying, are infographics a good tool to include in your article? So let's say you're creating content, whether it's your blog or your guest posting. What about infographics?
Infographics are really good. Infographics are graphical representation of a story. So if you want, for the person that doesn't like to read, like a person that is very visual, then like our American president is, he probably likes infographics. So for that kind of an avatar, you put the infographic. They're easy to consume. They can download them and then use them. So, and the great platform for that is Pinterest. So put your infographics on Pinterest, and then you will get a lot of traffic from that free source also. So great question, great resource.
And I want to talk about something a little bit more complex that people might have. I just want to touch on this a little bit. Is your pillar content strategy, your skyscraper content strategy. Content itself, I think, is complex as well. We've talked about this in the past, Qamar. Help us understand really briefly, when you get deeper into content, when you're planning your social media, your blogs, your outreach to your clients, the ideas behind creating these pillar contents and so on.
So pillar content, as they call it, skyscrapers, are designed to be one page of a total resource. And why they work is Wikipedia works. We go to search, we find a Wikipedia page pretty much for every search term, and there's a wiki page on that, and they consist of a lot of content. So the marketers like Brian Dean developed this concept of the skyscraper. Neil Patel developed this concept, or I don't think he developed it, but he copied it from Brian Dean. But it works. So if I'm consuming the content, I want to read something, then I want to have FAQs on it, then I want to have a video on it, then I want to have an image on it, etc., etc. So that kind of content is loved by search engines because it starts to build something called an EAT, which means expertise, authority, and trust. So if you are, just by creating content doesn't build the EAT, but you are an expert and you have written authoritative content and you keep doing it quite often, you will be trusted. So that really helps. And a typical strategy for content is tell a story. I think of that as a screenplay. So it keeps the user stuck to the page. Otherwise, you're going to bounce off, and that's not going to work for you. So whatever content you do, before you think of a content, think of the context. A lot of people don't do that. The context of the content is important. Whose problem is that content going to solve? That's important.
Thanks, Qamar. I know we're headed almost towards the end of our conversation, and I know there's so much to talk about. We could talk about an hour about just the content pillar or graphics or SEO. As we head towards the end, we're also fighting. Businesses are struggling with this COVID-19 pandemic because economies are suffering, so on and so forth. What can we do today to accelerate maybe how we reach out to people, how we tell our audiences that, hey, there's something new here that of value to you. Let's say I'm a restaurant who's got this loan from the government now, a real life situation, and I've got this loan from the government and I want to restart my operations in a restaurant. What should I be doing right away?
Two things come to my mind. One is, if you're a restaurant, that means you're a local business. Google has a great tool called Google My Business or the map. Start putting question and answers about your restaurant. Start putting posts. There are posts that you can do. Start putting events. They're all free tools. Now, once you start doing that, Google start to crawl your page more often, and then do a story, write a press release on a platform like ours, and then send the user to your map address through the story. So you're starting to now build the trust. And let me actually be granular on this. I know we don't have enough time. What happens is that if you have never done marketing, or if you have done marketing and you're not significantly higher on the search results, it will take you time. It'll take you months, but the story will index tomorrow. You will be found on Yahoo News or Google search results. So when somebody's searching for, I feel hungry and I feel like eating a quinoa cake, then if they search for it, and if there's an article that you have written and that was published, they're going to click there. And when they read that story, send them to your map address, send them to your menu, send them to wherever resource you have created a video. That's the best thing I can recommend, and it's relatively inexpensive. I mean, we even have a free service. So whatever makes you happy, do it, but do it quite often. Just doing it once a month is not going to do it.
I think what happens is, and I've seen this happen a lot, is entrepreneurs will try to do everything on their own, and this is a challenge with entrepreneurs. You want to be able to save money. You're going to try and do your own social media. You're going to try to do your own PR. I wouldn't take out my own tooth if I had a toothache. I wouldn't treat myself if I was feeling sick. I have to go to a doctor. So my suggestion really to viewers generally is just connect with a digital marketing company, with an agency, whatever it is, whoever is in your network or not, or get them through referrals. But work with experts, because you're going to waste very little time, get more bang for your buck, and actually get results. So right from this creating this website to posting and all of that, This is all somebody else's job. Let them do their job so that you can excel at what you do. I have a follow-up question for somebody, and they're asking about SEO. Kamar, you mentioned in the beginning about SEO and what's happening in SEO, which is it's something dark. Tell us a little bit more about that. Should we care about SEO right now, or not really? And what's the future of SEO?
Well, SEO is foundation. SEO is a foundation. So just like a house, you need a foundation. SEO is, I'll explain SEO in two different ways. So there's an SEO where you want to plan for a body so you can have six-pack abs for a very long time. That's long term. Or you can take one of those diets and you will lose all the weight, but you will gain all the weight back in 30 days. So it depends on the SEO strategy. If you use the gray and the black hat, that works sometime, but it's not going to work for all the time, and you're going to be delisted, and that's going to be destroying your brand. Versus going to a long-term SEO, and the long-term SEO is write good content so it's found, and when it's get found and people are consuming the content, Google will consider that as a very good positive signal, and they will reward you with good SEO. That is the only SEO. SEO means content that gets referred by people. So you created this video, you put it on YouTube, people come, you will go higher. Okay. If people come and leave, that means that content is not good. You need to do something about it. So that's really what is a good SEO strategy.
Amazing. Thank you, Qamar. I know we're almost to the end. You also wanted to give away something to our viewers today, and whoever's watching this, give us something. Give us the good news.
The good news is that they can, up till now, we have been giving free press releases, but those who have attended this event can go and get a paid release. They'll still use the free process, but their release will be upgraded. In the notes we have, just put they saw the webinar live stream on Ian Khan's website, and they get it.
Okay, excellent. So folks, whoever is watching this, you get access to a paid PR, but you're not going to pay for it. It's not a free PR service. You'll get the access to the paid press release service by KissPR, all thanks to Qamar and his amazing team, just for attending this live stream and watching this live stream. All you got to do is sign up for the free PR service. Write in the comments that you watched the live webinar, the live stream, and your press release will be upgraded, which means you'll get access to more platforms. Your press release will go out to a larger audience and larger list.
There will be about 100
of media. Yes,
100 websites, Associated Press, MarketWatch. I mean, we are connected to some of the best outlets that people are normally paying $600-700 for.
And Qamar, your website is kisspr.com.
That's our website, but to go to the press release side of the business, they need to go to story.kisspr.com. So STORY, the dot, or people that are from England, full stop, kisspr.com.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll have quite a few people doing that. We've used this service quite a bit during COVID-19, and hence, I loved what it did for us in terms of generally getting everybody aware of what we were doing here as well. And so please sign up, get your account on, do the free PR, put in the comments that you attended the live stream, and your account will be upgraded. Your PR will be upgraded to a better, much higher reach. Qamar, there's so much to talk about, but I know you have other things to do. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving us these insights and sharing your experience with us. And hopefully many of our viewers will watch this video, learn from it, and hopefully do better in their businesses and create more impact in the world. So thank you so much for your time, Qamar.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So with that, the live stream is over, folks. And follow me at Ian Khan Futurist on any of your social media platforms, and see the work that we do. It's been a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the week. and the weekend. Take care and see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.